Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Hey, brothers and sisters. Hope you all are enjoying this Shabbat today as we are. We give glory to Ahayah Ashịrị Ahayah, and our Adonai Yache, and our mother Rụwaka, Kwadoshi. And y'all, I'm thankful for this time with you, brothers and sisters. Really enjoying this opportunity and have a great topic to discuss. So excited about it. The discussion today is about flat Earth, whether it's actually true or not. Is the earth a sphere or is the earth flat? The Hebrew records, on the testimony, always tell the truth.
That's right.
And we're very excited about it.
Well, we definitely want to thank all our viewers and everybody who's been watching and supporting the church. And we have any new viewers, we definitely welcome you. And if you have any questions or comments based on anything we go on, I know some of the information will be new to you. If you have any questions or comments, please email us at hebrewreaders@gmail.com. The email should be in the description box. And also visit the website. It has plenty of information that get you caught up on doctrine, on belief, understanding, even the law and the testimony. So we definitely encourage you to visit the website as well.
Yes. Now, going into this discussion of whether the earth is flat or whether it's a sphere, we'll look at the scriptures and see what is true according to what we are taught by the word, because this is where we are guided through the light that is in the law and testimony. We are taught to understand things that we can't see by what we can see. In Romans chapter 1 verse 20, please.
For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Alahayim head, so that they are without excuse.
So through scriptures, we can go by things we can see to understand the invisible things. We can see the sun and moon and the stars. They are all spheres, circular entities, and the scriptures describe them as such. Look at 2 Ezra chapter 6, verse 45 and 46, please.
2 Ezra chapter 6, verse 45. Upon the fourth day thou commandest the fourth day thou commandest that the sun should shine, and the moon give her light, and the stars should be in order.
Right.
Verse 46. And gave them a charge to do service unto man that was to be made.
All right. Sirach chapter 43, verse 9 and 10. So you see the stars should be in order, the sun should shine, and the moon should give her light. All right, and they're all for the service of man. Okay.
Sirach chapter 43, verse 9. The beauty of heaven and the glory of the stars, an ornament giving light in the highest places of Ahayah. At the commandment of the Holy One, they will stand in their order and never faint in their watches.
So we see stars have orders to stand in. Okay? Now, let's look at 2 Baruch, chapter 48, verse 9.
You instruct created things in the understanding of you, and you make wise the spheres so as to minister in their orders.
That's referring to the stars right there. They are the ones that minister in their orders. We see scripturally the stars are spheres. According to definition, can you read the definition of a sphere, please?
Round, solid figure, or its surface, with every point on its surface, what's that word? Equidistant from its center.
So we see the sphere-like stars are referred to as circles as well. So one could understand works of creation were spheres, and they're also called circles in the scriptures. So circles doesn't literally only mean it's a literal circle. A sphere, things that are spherical, are also referred to as circles in the scriptures. So look at Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 13, verse 2.
But deemed either fire or wind, or the swift air, or the circle of the stars.
The circle of the stars. We know stars are sphericals according to the precepts. And we see that Solomon referred to them as circles as well. So you can see that in the scriptures, a sphere and circle can be used and mean the same thing. Right?
or the violent water, or the lights of heaven, to be the Alahayim which govern the world.
All right. So we see the world, we see the word circles include spherical things like the stars. And we'll also see the sun and moon are circles like the heaven. Read Enoch chapter 78, verse 3, please.
These are the two great luminaries. Their circumference is like the circumference of the heaven.
Right, and we can look up at the sun and the moon and see that it's an actual sphere. And the scriptures say their circumference is as the heaven, which lets us know the heaven is a sphere as well. Okay? And continue.
And the size of the circumference of both is alike.
And that lets us know the sun and the moon, those spheres, have the same circumference. They're the same size. Okay? The sun and the moon are spheres too, which all minister in their order and appointed times, just like the stars. They are all the lights to give light to men, because remember the scripture said that they are for the service of man. Can you read Enoch chapter 82, verse 7 and 8, please?
Enoch chapter 82, verse 7. And the account thereof is accurate, and the recorded reckoning thereof exact. For the luminaries and months and festivals and years and days, as Uriel shown and revealed to me, to whom the Adonai of the whole creation of the world hath subjected the host of heaven. And he hath power over night and day in the heaven to cause light, to give light. And he has power over night and day in the heaven to cause the light, to give light to men.
All right, now he said he has power over the night and day in heaven to cause the light, to give light to men. And we know before the sun, moon, and stars are what's for the service of man. And we're going to see here by what he explains in the scripture that when he says the light, what's it referring to when you read the rest of the verse, please?
Sun, moon, and stars, and all the powers of heaven, which revolve in their circular chariots.
So that lets you know when he said the light, he's referring to everything that gives light, everything that was created to minister unto men, to give light on the earth. The sun, the moon, the stars, and all the powers of heaven. And notice what he said, which revolve in their circular chariots. So the sun and moon and stars are spheres, and they have circular chariots that carry them. And notice they revolve. They actually revolve around the earth. The earth is not revolving, as we're going to see according to the scriptures. Now, the lights are spheres that minister in their order in the heavens and ride upon the circular chariots, as we just read in Enoch chapter 82, verse 7 to 8. Revolving around the earth. So the earth is still and the lights revolve around it. Now we're going to also see the heaven and earth are spheres too, according to the scriptures, which is going to show us the truth of the matter concerning whether the earth is flat or spherical. Let's look at 2 Baruch chapter 19, verse 1. And notice we're going into the Hebrew records. This was our guide. This is where the light dwells, so we can have understanding in all things. 2 Baruch chapter 19, verse 1 to 3, please.
2 Baruch chapter 19, verse 1. And he answered and said unto me, Wherefore at that time he appointed for them a covenant and said, Behold, I have placed before you life and death. And he called heaven and earth to witness against them.
Notice, he called heaven and earth to witness against them. So we have two witnesses, heaven and earth, right? Let's continue.
For he knew that his time was but short, but that heaven and earth endure always.
This was Moses. He had said this in Deuteronomy chapter 30, right? Continue.
But after his death they sinned and transgressed, though they knew that they had the law reproving them.
So the law was standing reproving them, the commandments. Continue.
And the light in which nothing could err.
We know from Enoch 82, verse 8, that light in which nothing could err was the sun, the moon, and the stars, and the powers of heaven, right? Because it sees everything. They're lights, right? The darkness can't hide in the light. Continue.
Also the spheres which testified, and me.
Now notice he said also the spheres. Which spheres is he referring to? He said the spheres which testify of me. The same spheres are the two spheres that he called to witness heaven and earth. the scriptures show that heaven and earth is actually spheres. And then he said, and me, speaking of Yache, who is speaking to Baruch here.
Right.
So you have the law reproving us, the lights in which nothing can err, the sun, the moon, and the stars, which we now know are all spheres, and the powers of heaven. And then also you have the spheres which testify, heaven and earth, which were both called as a witness against us. And we have Yache, who is the one that came down, the glory of Ahayah that came down and gave the law, and has been committed all authority in heaven and in earth. So according to the scriptures, the earth is a sphere. It's right here in the Hebrew records from the word of Alahayim, that we may be guided and know the truth of the matter. Now that we know these things, that the heaven is a sphere too, and that's why the scriptures speak of the sun and moon as having circumferences as the heaven. Now it all comes together, so you can see that they're all spheres. It's like an onion, for lack of a better carnal thing. It's layers. Yeah, and we're going to see this as we go through the scriptures. We're going to end up looking at the creation as well to see how things played out. Can you read Enoch chapter 72, verse 4, please? So you can see how the sun and moon, touch on that again, that they are also have the circumference as the heaven, because the heaven is a sphere as well.
Enoch chapter 72, verse 4. And first there goes forth the great luminary, named the sun, and his circumference is like the circumference of the heaven.
And we understand it now. The heaven is a sphere. The sun is also a sphere. You can look at it and see it's a sphere. Continue.
And he is quite filled with illuminating and heat and fire. The chariot on which he ascends, the wind drives, and the sun goes down from the heaven and returns through the north in order to reach the east. And it is so guided that he comes to the appropriate portal and shines in the face of the heaven.
So you see how we read, that was Enoch 72, verse 4 and 5. And we read before how the sun and the moon, they're in circular chariots as they revolve around the earth. And you also see from this scripture that it's the wind that drives it. So you see how the sun goes from the east to the west every day. All right, can you read Enoch chapter 73, verse 1 and 2, please?
Enoch chapter 73, verse 1. And after this law I saw another law, dealing with the smaller luminary, which is named the moon. And her circumference is like the circumference of the heaven.
So she's a sphere as well.
And her chariot in which she rides is driven by the wind, and light is given to her in definite measure.
That's why she's not as bright as the sun. And remember from the prior verse there, the sun and the moon are of the same circumference. All right? They're the same size. The moon isn't a flat circle, because we can look at it and see it as well. Hence we know that the heaven isn't a flat circle either, seen as though they have the same circumference. Now that we see all the lights are spheres, and we've also seen that the heaven and earth is a sphere, which are all described as circles. When we saw actually the stars were described as circles, as we read in Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 13. And we're going to look forward in the scriptures more to see that now that we know the heaven and earth are spheres, in the scriptures, the word circle is also used to describe these spheres as well. Now let's start looking at creation. We're going to start from the beginning and see how these things came about. Can we read Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, please?
Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, Alahayim created the heaven and the earth.
And that was they. It was the three, Alahayim. When you have to back to Hebrew document now, you can understand that word Alahayim is plural. It's referring to the three that bear witness in heaven. All right? They, the father and the mother, made the word first. He was the first creation, Yache. He was who was made in the beginning, and he is the beginning of the creation of Alahayim, according to his own words. We can read Revelations 3 and 14, please.
And unto the angel of the church of the Laodiceans write, These things saith the Amen, the faithful and true witness, the beginning of the creation of Alahayim.
So that lets us know that the father and mother made him first. He was the beginning of creation. And we could get further testimony that that word was one of the works that was made on the first day. 2 Ezra chapter 6, verse 38, please.
And I said, O Ahayah, thou spakest from the beginning of creation.
Notice he spake. So this is not the first work was a word. He spake from the beginning of creation. Continue.
Even the first day, and saideth thus, let heaven and earth be made, and thy word was a perfect word.
Now, the Genesis 1:1 said in the beginning, Alahayim created the heaven and earth. And Alahayim did say, let heaven and earth be made, but there was a word in the Hebrew language that has been omitted in the English translations. The word was the first and perfect work of Alahayim. This was the creation of Yache. The word that was spoken is concordance number H853. The word is ato. This is a word that's still in the Bantu language to this day among the Igbos. Ato is in Igbo and it means divine word. This is what it means in Igbo still to this day. Divine word, model, source of comparison, thing to which something else is compared. That's why Yache is the image of Alahayim. That's why Yache told Philip, when Philip says, show us the Father and it'll suffice us in John 14. He said, how long have I been with you and you have not seen the Father? If you've seen me, you've seen the Father, because Yache is Ato. He is the model of the Father, the source of comparison, and he is the divine word. He's the one that was spoken in the beginning, in the creation. And through Bantu language, we can understand that word is the image of Alahayim because he is the source, as Colossians 1:15 said. When we see him, Colossians 1:15 said he is the image of Alahayim. I think it says he's the image of Alahayim bodily. It's either Hebrews or Colossians. I cannot remember particularly which one. I'm sorry. We can look at Genesis chapter 1 in the Hebrew language to see that that word that was the perfect work is indeed Ato, which is Yache. When you read Genesis chapter 1 in the Hebrew, it says, Boroshieta Boro Alahayim Ato, He Shomayim, We Ato, He Iroezi. That Ato, you find Ato before he mentions the heavens and Ato before he mentions the earth, because everything was created by him and for him. And that's what Colossians also mentions in Colossians chapter 1 about verse 15 to 17, that it is indeed Yache that created all these things and it was all made for him. So continuing from there, we've seen the word was created first. If you can read Colossians 1 verse 15 to 17, please.
Yes. One thing.
Oh, please.
I try to stay away personally from saying the Bantu language because it makes it seem like Bantu language is different than Hebrew. So I personally try to say the Bantu dialect because they're only speaking Hebrew in different dialects. So I don't want to confuse anybody to think that it's two separate things when it's actually one language in itself. So.
Since you mentioned that, there are a few words we're going to look at when we're looking at a part of the creation to see that it is one and the same language, that it is literally Hebrew dialect. They are, to give a little history, they are called Bantu. That's the name that were ascribed by our captives. And Bantu, it is this. That's from Hebrew. That's from the root word H1004, the word for house. Bayata. And when you look at among the Bantu speakers, what Bantu actually means, it means the people or the people of the house. That title lets us know they actually are the people because they speak the language and they still have that title ascribed to them as the people, because even in the scriptures we're referred to as the people. When Yache was speaking to Paul in Acts chapter 26, he said, deliver you from the people and the Gentiles. This is actually the language of the Hebrews. that is being spoken among the people that are called Bantu to this day. And we're going to see that in some of the words. We already seen Ato, which is literally, that word is still intact, and it means the same thing as Yache actually is to this day. And there are more words we're going to look at in the creation. Thank you.
Colossians 1:15. Who is the image of the invisible Alahayim, the firstborn of every creature? For by him were all things created, that are in heaven and that are in earth.
And that's why you saw Atum before heaven and before earth, because everything was created by him. He was the word that was spoken to get it done. All right?
Visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers, all things were created by him and for him. And he is before all things, and by him all things consist.
That's an important thing, that by him all things consist, because the whole creation is held together by the word.
Right.
That's to understand that sound, that word resonates through all of creation and keeps everything in place and keeps everything in order. The Yache is literally everywhere. Ahayah, that word of Alahayim, that word of light is in everything. Okay. Can you read Jubilees chapter 2, verse 2, please?
Sure.
So we see what was created on the first day.
For on the first day he created the heavens which are above the earth and the waters, and all the spirits which serve before him, the angels of the presence and the angels of sanctification, and the angels of the spirit of fire, and the angels of the spirit of the winds, and the angels of the spirit of the clouds and of darkness, and of snow, and of hail, and of hoarfrost, and the angels of the voices, and of the thunders of the lightning, and the angels of the spirits of cold and of heat, and of winter, and of spring, and of autumn, and of summer, and of all the spirits of his creatures, which are in heavens and on earth, he created the abysses and the darkness, eventide and the light, dawn and day, which he hath prepared in the knowledge of his heart.
So we see how all these things were created on the first day, and this is what we're going to look into. The elements were created, the waters on the earth, but the earth, by the end of the first day, we're going to look at this and see that the waters and the earth were without form. The waters was raging bounds, and the earth was formless when we look at the creation story. So we can see how Ahayah formed everything and gave it shape and whatnot in the creation. If you can read Genesis chapter 1, verse 2, please.
And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the spirit of Alahayim moved upon the face of the waters.
So we see that the earth was without form and void. Now it's interesting to see that what the words were showing, to understand that it was literally formless, that just the elements were there, but they had no shape. The word form, can you read the concordance definition for that, please? The word is H8414, and we're going to touch on the Hebrew of it to understand how the Bantu people are speaking the true Hebrew dialect as well.
What's the word?
So the Yiddish word is tohu.
Okay.
That's what they say in Yiddish, but in Hebrew, which is among the Bantus, the word is tuhu. They actually still speak the word to this day. And when we look at the definition, we're going to see that they haven't lost the definition as well.
The definition is formlessness, confusion, unreality, emptiness, formlessness, a primeval earth, primeval earth, primeval earth,
No degree.
nothingness, empty space.
Now notice it said nothingness. The word nothing in Igbo is still tuhu or tufu. They have different dialects, but the actual one from the ancient Hebrew word is tuhu. It means like to be lost, cast away, nothing. Their language, they still speak the Hebrew word that's written in Genesis chapter 1, verse 2. And it still has the same meaning, because H8414 said it means nothingness. And to this day, tuhor still means nothing in Igbo. So that they actually speak the language. And it gives us to understand the earth was nothing. It was without form. And then, can you read the word for void? H9. That's the right one. Yeah, the word for void. H922, please. That word in the Yiddish is bohu. But we can look at the actual Hebrew, the word is buhor. So in Genesis 1 and 2, it said tuhor with buhor. That's actual Hebrew language, not tohu and bohu. These words show that the Bantu still speak the ancient Hebrew dialect. When we read the definition, we look at the Bantu, the Hebrew root words that are still retained in the Bantu language to see that this word is in their dialect.
The definition is from an unused root, meaning to be empty.
Empty. That in Igbo, that's ehu. All right? The same from buhur, that root word hur, that's Igbo. And it means ehu, means empty. Right?
Excuse me, what's that?
Vacuity.
A vacuity that is superficially an undistinguishable ruin.
Mm-hmm.
Emptiness, void.
Now, we had ehu, which is empty, waste, and then you also have buhu, which is quietness. When is nothing there, it's completely quiet. And you also have ibu, which is the deep or the abyss, because there's describing out abyss, there's nothing there. And that word, so you can see that word buhu is is two root words, the B and the H and the U. The B is bu and the H is huo. Buhur, that is still in Bantu dialect because they retain the Hebrew root words and they still have the meanings of these words from the beginning of the Bible. They still speak it. We read Genesis chapter 1 in the Hebrew language. We're looking at Genesis chapter 1 verse 1 in the Hebrew language. We're looking at verse 2 and seeing the root words still in the Hebrew language among the Bantus today, to see that this is indeed the ancient dialect that's being spoken still in West Africa. So seeing that the earth was without form and void, and then we had mentioned earlier that the water it wasn't shaped as well, it was just raging water, raging seas, right? It said in Genesis 1 and 2, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. Can you read the definition for deep in H84:15, where the Yiddish is tehom, but this is actually the language of the true Hebrew speakers among the Bantu, and the word is actually tuhomi. And we're going to read the definition and then look at some of the root words of the Hebrew language that's retained among the Bantus to see that this is still in their dialect. If you can read that definition, please.
Yes. Usually feminine. From H1949, an abyss. As a surging mass of water.
So you see, it was when it said darkness upon the face of deep is an abyss, a surging mass of water. There's no form there, all right?
Especially the deep, the main sea, or the subterranean water supply. Deep place or depth.
Now notice it said depth. The root words here are the W and the M at the end of the word omimi. If Igbo speaker hears that, they know that means deep. The same definition that is in the Hebrew concordance of H44:15, or Emi. And then also a Yoruba speaker can understand it's referring to waters, because Omi is water in the Yoruba language. You can see how among the Bantus they've retained the roots in their dialects and it's spread out. So Tuhomi, if you had the opportunity to sit with them and show them their root words in the Hebrew dialect, they would be able to see that this is actually their language. And among the Bantus, they have just rearranged it in another way, yet they kept the root words from these ancient words. So with Tuhomi or Tuhomi, we can understand that it's talking about the abyss, the depth, the deep, because Omi or Omimi is referring to the deep, and Omi is also referring to water. So we understand that it's speaking about a dark place where it's deep and there's nothing going on like that, because tuhor speaks about nothing. It's like, it's darkness, it's emptiness. So you can see how the dialect is still retained among the Hebrew speakers to this day. So that was our mini little looking into the Hebrew language. And continuing, the depths had no form. It was raging waters, right? There was darkness upon the face of the deep, and the earth was formless and without void. Now we're going to look and see that he encircled the deep in a sphere as well. Let's look at Proverbs 8:27.
When he prepared the heavens, I was there. When he set a compass upon the face of the depth.
So we see a compass was set upon the face of the depth. That word compass is H2329. The Yiddish says kug. That's not what that word is.
I know that word.
You know that word? Good. Now, now this also is a good word to understand how what the American Hebrew has created was not the language, because they will look at this word and say kawag. That is not what the word is either. So kug, the Yiddish, is not our language, is not the ancient Hebrew language, and kawag is not the ancient Hebrew dialect, but it's actually still retained in the Bantu language. And go ahead, man.
Oh, koga.
Koga. That is Hebrew language, and is what's written in the scriptures. A CH, a O, and a G, or CH, W, and G. Koga. Now, I'm going to explain the root words, and then we'll read the definition.
Right.
Okay? The root word ko means to hook or together. Like it's something together. It's not separated. It's ko is hooked together, and then also you have okolo. That's the word for something round, circular, or going around. So that lets you know it's together, it's hooked, and it just keeps going in a circle. It's describing a thread.
Right.
And then you also, this is Igbo, that word okolo, that's Igbo. And the same way ko is together and with a hook, that's Igbo. And you have kiri, so that root ke, kiri means round. And then you also have the K, which is in that word, is still also in the Yoruba as well, because the word kakiri, that means round, or ka means round in Yoruba. So you can see this word is literally describing a circle. Now, the word is koga. We looked at one word, ko, and then now the word ga means to go or move. So to describe the circle, describe the sphere that one sees, it's together, ko, and it's hooked, and it keeps going, ga, and you just keep going round and round and round. Right, koga. That's how they're describing the compass that's been set. That's how they describe the sphere that it's in. It doesn't stop. It's completely covered. And that's how Alahayim set a compass on the face of the deep, because it was raging water, tuhomi, and he set a compass and bound it up so that's where it stays. Okay, now read the definition of koga. We just explained the Hebrew. From the Bantu dialect, looking at the root words to see that the Bantu root words are actually Hebrew. And now let's read the definition out of concordance, please.
Okay.
H2329.
It said from H2328, a circle. Mm-hmm. Circle, circuit, compassive.
And we read how a circle also can describe a sphere already. We know the earth is literally a sphere and whatnot. And we see from the root word ko how it's describing a circle, because the Hebrew language is descriptive. Adam named everything according to what he saw. So you can see how the language is literally describing what a circle looks like. Koga, it keeps going around and around, and it's together. It's not broken. So you can understand what that word means. And
the word circuit also is a roughly circular line, or route or movement that starts and finishes at the same place. So
it's all one. That's why it's koga. It doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. All right. And now you see that he set a compass completely around the depth, so it's closed up. And that helps us understand that the sea is on top of the deep. Okay? Look at 2 Ezra chapter 16, verse 57.
He searcheth the deep and the treasures thereof.
All right? That's speaking of the deep, the abysses, right? The tuhomimi, all right?
He hath measured the sea and what it containeth.
Now the sea is on top of that. That's a different thing. It's all water, but it's different. Those waters on top of the deep were divided by the firmament. The upper waters are the heavens, and the lower water is the sea. If we look at Genesis chapter 1, verse 6 and 7, please.
All right. Sorry. That's no problem. Genesis chapter 1, verse 6. And Alahayim said, Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And Alahayim made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so.
Those waters that were divided, those waters, that's not the deep. The deep is tuhomimi, as we read, right? H 84:15. The waters is miyim, that's H 43:25. That EE, that's a source, a stream of water. And among the Bantu, you can hear them. That root word mi is still used for water. You have among the Igbos, you have them sing miri or mili. You even have among the Yoruba, they say mi or omi. That's water. And then even in North America, places like Minnesota or Milwaukee or Michigan, they retain that root word mi for water. Though they don't know that it's Hebrew today, yet the language is still among the people. So it was divided, the firmament divided the waters above the firmament and below the firmament. Continue.
Jubilees?
You finished? All right. So the firmament divided those waters. The flood story helps us understand the depth and the firmament are both enclosed. When we look at what happened in the flood story, we look at Jubilees chapter 5, verse 24 and 25, please.
Jubilees chapter 5, verse 24. And Ahayah opened 7 floodgates of heaven.
So those 7 floodgates, because when he made the firmament, that enclosed the earth and the waters in a sphere. It's enclosed, and he had to open the 7 floodgates to allow water, that upper water that was divided in the beginning, to flow down into the earth. This is the only way you could actually flood the earth in that short amount of time. You had the waters from above coming, flowing down into the earth, right? Okay, continue.
And the mouths of the fountains of the great deep.
Notice the deep was encompassed too, and he opened those mouths of those fountains that water could shoot up into the earth and flood the whole place. Continue.
7 mouths in number. And the floodgates began to pour down water from the heaven 40 days and 40 nights. And the fountains of the deep also sent up waters until the whole world was full of water.
So there we see that whole firmament got filled with water. It's similar to those little glass things that you would take and shake.
Right.
That's how the firmament is. The water was shooting up from the depths, and it was shooting in from
The firmament.
above the firmament, and it encompassed the whole world in water. That's how the earth actually got flooded. All right, continue.
Jubilee. Go on.
Oh, yeah, Jubilees chapter 5, verse 29.
And on the new moon, in the 4th month, the fountains of the great deep were closed, and the floodgates of the heaven were restrained. And on the new moon of the 7th month, all the mouths of the abysses of the earth were opened.
Notice now he had opened the mouths of the abysses, right? Continue.
And the water began to descend into the deep below.
So he stopped the water from coming from outside of the firmament by closing it up, and closed up the mouths of the deep so the water couldn't shoot up into the earth anymore. And then he opened the abysses, and all the water drained out into the abysses. That's what actually happened in the flood. Okay? The scriptures also show that the waters are truly above us. Hence, the sky is blue, because we are literally looking up at water. And remember, we started off mentioning how we can understand invisible things by the things that are seen. The sky is blue literally because we're looking up at water. There are waters above us. Look at the prayer of the prayer of Azariah. This is in the Apocrypha, chapter 1, verse 38, please.
Oh, all ye waters that be above the heaven.
All ye waters that be above the heaven. That's the waters above the firmament. Continue.
Bless ye Ahayah. Praise and exalt him above all forever.
And we can also get an account from someone who's been up in the heavens to see that there's actually water there in the Testament of Levi, chapter 2, verse 6 and 7.
Testament of Levi, chapter 2, verse 6. I was upon it, and behold, the heavens were opened, and an angel of Alahayim said to me, Levi, enter. And I entered from the first heaven.
So he entered from the first heaven. So now he's above the firmament now, so you can actually see what's above the firmament.
And I saw there a great sea hanging.
So we see the great seas hanging right over the firmament. Okay? Can you read 2nd Ezra chapter 16, verse 58 too, please?
He spreadeth out the heavens like a vault. Upon the waters he hath founded it.
All right. Can you read Genesis chapter 1, verse 8, please?
And Alahayim called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day.
And that lets us know the firmament has waters above it. And the heaven, which is up above, shomim, the actual word heaven is shomim. Shaw or shaw is a word in Hebrew for a tumultuous noise. And the word miyim is the waters. And that lets you know when you hear the voice of Alahayim as the sound of many waters. Because he's speaking from the highest heavens and he's speaking down into the earth. So that water above the heavens shakes. That's why you hear the voice of many waters. The sound is resounding off of those waters in Shomayim. That's the firmament and what we know as heaven today that we look up to. Now, we recall from Genesis 1 and 2, the earth had no form. So let's see how it was made. If you read Genesis chapter 1, verse 9 and 10, please.
Genesis chapter 1, verse 9. And Alahayim said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so.
So that's he pulled the earth, the earth was within the water. When the water had gotten divided, that's how let you know there's a lot of water in the world. Because he divided the waters from the water. And then still pull the waters all to one place to let the dry land appear from within it. Okay.
And Alahayim called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called he seas.
The word seas is yim. That is a word that's in the Bantu document as well. The word iyi is a source, a stream, a source of water to this day in the Igbo language. And that root word yi is actually from this Hebrew word for seas. Yim or yimi, that's the actual Hebrew word for water that's still retained among the Hebrew speakers to this day. And the word earth is iroezi. The word iro means outskirts. Or in the Yoruba, they say ile means land. So you have ilezi or irezi. The ezi means the outskirts. When someone goes off into the deep wilderness, that's ezi. So the earth is a big landscape, a big outskirt of land, ilezi or iroezi. And this is in the Bantu Hebrew document as well, to look at the root words that are still retained among the Hebrew speakers of the Bantu people.
And Alahayim saw that it was good.
Now, let's see what form the earth was made into. We read Isaiah chapter 40, verse 21 and 22, please.
Isaiah chapter 40, verse 21. Have ye not known? Have ye not heard? Hath it not been told you from the beginning? Have ye not understood from the foundations of the earth? It is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth.
From precept, we read Baruch chapter 19. We understand this now. He sitteth upon the circle of the earth is as literal as can be. The earth is a sphere, and he sitteth upon it. The scripture is what they say, is what they say. And that word circle is the same word koga that describes a circle or a circuit. Something that I forgot what you read in that definition.
It begins and ends at the same place.
And that's why he said the foundation, because he started making it from somewhere. and it's, the scriptures say what they say. The earth is a sphere, as we read in Baruch chapter 19, verse 1 to 3.
And the inhabitants thereof are as grasshoppers, that stretcheth out the heaven as a curtain.
And we know he did that as a curtain, because that was how he made the firmament. He spread it out. He separated the waters and spread it out, and it completely encompasses the seas and the earth. Right?
And spreadeth them out as a tent to dwell in.
He uses the things that we know to help us understand what he did. He covered it all just as we would cover ourselves with a tent. Right? And we literally dwell within the firmament, just as we would dwell in a tent. Let's read 2 Ezra chapter 16, verse 58, please.
He hath shut the sea in the midst of the waters.
He shut the sea in the midst of the waters, all right?
And with his word hath he hanged the earth upon the waters.
That lets us know the earth literally sits upon the water. According to the scriptures, the earth is not revolving in a circle continually, as we were taught in science, falsely so called. But the truth is, the earth sits on top of the water, according to the scriptures. All right? Job chapter 26, verse 7.
He stretcheth out the north over the empty place, and hangeth the earth upon nothing.
The earth is not, the earth, as the scriptures say, is just hanging there. It's hanging upon nothing. It's sitting above the waters, and we're going to see in the scriptures that it's actually winds that are holding it in place. Hence, there's nothing. It's not propped up on some props that's just holding it there, like physical, like rods or something like that. It's actually the wind that sustains it, as we're going to read in the scriptures. That's what he said, he sitteth it upon nothing. All right? The earth sits upon the waters, being held in one position by the word and the winds that bear it up to stay in its place. Let's look at 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 5, please.
For this they willingly are ignorant of, by the word of Alahayim the heavens were of old.
So by the word of Alahayim the heavens were of old, and we know that word is Ato, which is Yache, the word, the one of the three that bear witness. He was the one that made the heaven of old, and continue.
And the earth standing out of the water and in the water.
See, the earth standing out of the water and in the water. Because that helps you understand and ties the scriptures together, where we read in 2 Ezra chapter 16, verse 58, that the earth was upon the waters. Because it is upon the waters, yet as it is described, as Peter said, it's standing out of the water and in the water. It's in it, but it's also being held up out of it. Because if it actually was to be falling in, we would all drown. Because as we know, the water is greater than the earth, yet the earth sits up out of it. And we're going to see in the scriptures that there are pillars of wind that actually hold it in place. And that's why Job said it sit upon nothing. It's not an actual other rock that's standing there holding it, but it's the winds that's holding it in place. Enoch chapter 18, let's read verse 1 to 5, please.
Enoch chapter 18, verse 1. I saw the treasuries of all the winds, and I saw how he had furnished with them the whole creation.
He furnished with them the whole creation. So the winds are holding everything together. Okay? Continue.
And the firm foundations of the earth.
And that's what's holding the foundations of the earth together. Okay? Continue.
And I saw the cornerstone of the earth.
Right.
I saw the four winds which bear the earth and the firmament of the heavens.
So you see there are four winds that bear the earth. The earth is being bared up. That's why Peter said it stands out of the water and in the water. The earth is being bared up, and also the firmament of heaven is being bared up. So that firmament that was made, it's also being bared and held together by winds as well. All right? Continue.
And I saw how the wind stretched out the vaults of heaven.
Right. We read the scripture, Ahayah, talk about how he stretches out the heavens as a vault. You can see how he has his winds that keeps it all in place.
And have their station between heaven and earth.
Right. And that lets you know that it's the wind that keeps heaven from falling into the earth as well.
Right.
Okay. That keeps the firmament up above us. Continue.
These are the pillars of the heavens.
So you see how wind is actually pillars too? The word pillar doesn't only mean an actual beam of a material. It's also referring to something of winds as well. The word for pillar is H5982, and the definition is pillar, column, upright, and even column of smoke. And it isn't only used in the context of referring to a marble pillar or a gold or silver pillar. You also have in Psalms 99:7, it says, He spake unto them in a cloudy pillar. A cloud that's smoke. That's, what is that, water vapor?
Yeah, I guess you would say so.
It's not an actual hard rock material, but yet it's a pillar because it's standing erect, standing upright. So when we read that, it said that, can you read that part again about the pillars?
Verse 3.
Yeah.
And I saw how the wind stretched out the vaults of heaven and have their station between heaven and earth.
So the wind stretched out the vaults of heaven. So those the firmaments are kept in place by these pillars, right? Okay.
These are the pillars of the heavens.
So you see that pillars are winds as well. You have the four pillars. You have the pillars. You have the four winds that bear up the earth and the firmament of heaven. So there are pillars for the earth and there are pillars for the heavens. Continue.
I saw the winds on the earth carrying the
And
clouds.
then the winds are also at work carrying the clouds, because we read before how the sun and the moon and the stars have their circular chariots, and we see also that the winds carry the clouds as well. So the earth is sitting still and everything is being carried about in it by wind. That's why you can literally take a nice opportunity on a wonderful Shabbat day, sitting staring out the window, and you can see the clouds passing by because the winds are carrying them. And you're going to see the sun going on by as the day continues because the winds are carrying it as well in its circular chariot. The creation doesn't lie. It's Alahayim's work. It's all done in truth. It's all Yache's work. The evidence is before us. All right? Continue.
I saw the paths of the angels. I saw at the end of the earth the firmament of heaven above.
And you see the end of the earth, the firmament of heaven above, because you have the earth. And at the end of it, you have the firmament, because that's the next sphere. You have the deep, then the seas. Then the seas and the earth are together. Well, no, the earth is upon the seas. I'm sorry. You have the deep. You have the seas, then you have the earth, and then you have the firmament. And then now you're going into the first heaven, second heaven, all the way up to the seventh heaven. This is what was made from the beginning.
So one would say that the earth is literally partially sitting in water. That's why you have the water at the lower parts of the earth.
Right. Because he
Just
said...
try to make it visual for people.
Oh, yeah. Right. Thank you. Because he said it's standing out of the water and in the water.
Right.
Right.
So you literally have the deep, and then you have the water, and then you have the earth sitting partially in the water and out of the water. So that's where you get your sea from, and then you get your earth and your sky and all that because it's sitting out of the water. So
it's all levels. It's quite amazing. So the earth sits firmly upon the waters, and the winds carry everything else to revolve around it. Hence, we can clearly see the clouds passing by, and we discussed that, and the sun and the moon passing by every day as a witness to the truth. Can you read 2 Ezra chapter 11, verse 40, please?
And the fourth came and overcame all the beasts that were past, and had power over the world with great fearfulness, and over the whole compass of the earth.
Notice, when this beast had power, he had power over the whole compass of the earth. That's how you knew he actually ruled the whole world. And you know the word compass ties into the sphere as well.
With much wicked oppression, and so long time dwelt he upon the earth with deceit.
All right. So can we read, we read 2 Baruch chapter 19. Can we read that one more time in Isaiah chapter 40 and 22?
2 Baruch chapter,
Chapter 19, verse
chapter
1.
19, verse 1.
Sorry.
Okay. And he answered and said to me, Wherefore at that time he appointed for them a covenant and said, Behold, I have placed before you life and death. And he called heaven and earth to witness against them.
So those are the witnesses that are witness against us. Right?
For he knew that this time was but short, but that heaven and earth endure always. But after death they sinned and transgressed, though they knew that they had the law reproving them,
Right?
and the light in which nothing could err.
That's the sun, the moon, and the stars.
Also the spirits which testified in me.
That's the heaven and the earth that was called to witness. And me is speaking of Yache. He sees it all. All right? Isaiah 40:22.
It is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth, and the inhabitants thereof are as grasshoppers, that stretcheth out the heaven as a curtain, and spreadeth them out as a tent to dwell in.
And now we know that he did that by the winds, because he has a treasure in the wind that keeps everything in place. So in conclusion, the earth is a sphere, just like the deep, the heavens, the sun, the moon, and the stars. The creation is like an onion. There are layers of circles. That's what the scriptures tell. So you have specifically Baruch chapter 19, verse 1-3, to show that the earth and the heaven are actually spheres. So the flat earth concept is not true. That's not according to the law and the testimony. That's it.
Sounds good to me.
All right. Ciao, ciao.
Shabbat shalom.